What's up and welcome to My Point of View. I am your fat and opinionated host, and the universe, it has a mysterious way of working. Some of the events that transpire right before our eyes every day no longer seem real. Sometimes it feels like we are living in a movie. Now, I know all of you all know this by now, but a suspect has been arrested in connection to the quadruple homicide of the 4 University of Idaho students that have been dominating national headlines for the last month or so. The suspect's name is Bryan Kohberger, and we've been digging into this guy right here on this channel and over on my main channel, Cinema Shogun, for like the last 24 hours now. We've been able to uncover some pretty interesting things, but one detail that really is weird to me is that Bryan Kohberger has a sister. Now, that's not weird. Plenty of people have sisters, right? But Bryan Kohberger has a sister who actually wrote a poem for the Uvalde students and the Uvalde parents and the Uvalde school after that massacre, that catastrophe happened at that elementary school in Texas. I think the majority of you all know what incident I'm talking about. I do not want to go in detail, nor can I go into detail on YouTube about what happened that day. I don't even want to mentally take myself back to that day because it was a horrible day. A day that's definitely going to go down in history. A day where we watched law enforcement, for the lack of better words, almost allow someone to continue going on this rampage because they were too scared to stop him. That's a conversation for another day, though. I can already feel myself getting worked up and feeling passionate about that. But let's stay on topic. So, Bryan Kohberger's sister wrote a poem about the Uvalde massacre. And I want to go ahead and hop right into this article. I'm going to read you all the poem, and I'm going to read you all some words from Bryan Kohberger's mother, who actually wrote into a newspaper about the Uvalde situation last year as well. The mother of Bryan Christopher Kohberger, the 28-year-old man arrested early Friday in connection with the University of Idaho quadruple homicide, sent a letter to her local Pennsylvania paper last summer that included a poem about the Uvalde school massacre. The poem is written by Kohberger's sister, Melissa Kohberger, a mental health therapist in New Jersey. The suspect's mother, Mary Ann Kohberger, 62, of Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, wrote a letter to the Pocono Record that was published on June 12th or June 2nd, less than 2 weeks after the Uvalde shooting at an elementary school that left 17 students and 2 teachers unalived. As I sat this morning reeling from yet another school incident, I found myself wrestling with which actions need to be taken to stop all the madness, Kohberger wrote. What is the answer? Gun control measures? Mental health intervention? Then I received a message from my daughter who works as a mental health therapist in New Jersey. She shared a poem she had written while in the greatest depths of despair. It shook me to my core, and I felt the need to share it. The poem by 31-year-old Melissa Kohberger reads, "Bereft of their laughter, there is not a sound. As we lower our children into the ground. Small hands and feet, now buried 6 feet deep into the earth of the world that failed them." Now, my mind works in mysterious ways. So when I read this, I automatically hear Alanis Morissette playing in my mind. Isn't it ironic? Don't you think? Because isn't it ironic that Bryan's family was speaking out about school massacres and things of that nature, not knowing that their son and their brother was going to carry out a school massacre of his own. Now, of course, it's different. The details are very different. The crimes are very different. But nevertheless, 4 students were targeted in this crime. I find it interesting that his mother is talking about things like gun control when her son pulled off a crazy crime without a weapon or without a firearm. He used a knife. So I would ask, do we need knife control as well? I've come to find in my life, through looking at various situations, I've come to find that evil will find a way. Meaning that if someone wants to do something crazy, if someone wants to hurt someone, they'll figure out a way to do so. Whether it's with a car or various other means of carrying out these type of crazy situations. They will find a way. Also, criminals will find a way to get their hands on pew-pews, if you know what I mean. Okay, so they're going to find a way to do these type of things regardless. I really wish that Bryan's family was more concerned about what was happening under their own roof as opposed to speaking out about certain situations. I'm not angry that they spoke out about Uvalde and they felt some type of way about Uvalde. We all feel some type of way. But I think this may be a perfect example of how in modern day society, especially nowadays, people obsess over politics and they want to virtue signal about what's ever in the headlines. And they worry about what's on other people's front porch instead of sweeping their own. So we have Bryan's sister speaking out about this massacre when she had a brother who was about to carry out something like this himself. And she's a mental health therapist. Now, I want to be clear here. What Bryan did, those actions, that's because of Bryan alone. I'm not blaming Bryan's sister or Bryan's mother for anything. I'm just pointing out how in modern day society, we become so focused on worrying about other things and talking about other things and providing our opinions about other things, much like I'm doing right now, instead of worrying about what's going on under our own roof, instead of worrying about our own family, instead of worrying about our own problems. So while Bryan's mother and his sister were out here virtue signaling in the newspapers, talking about gun control and what have you, they had a mental health patient right under their own roof, right in their midst. I'm interested in knowing if Bryan's sister was able to spot any signs within her own brother. I know that she wants to write about other things, but did she know anything about her own brother? I think it's possible that if the same amount of energy was put into, looking at your own son and worrying about Bryan, if the same amount of energy was put into that was put into virtue signaling or writing into newspapers about other situations, then maybe we wouldn't be here today. I'm a firm believer that people who do things like what Bryan did, I believe there's a pattern there. I don't believe that you wake up one day and you decide to do something like this. I believe usually when people do things like this, not only is there a pattern there, but there's just a lifelong series of events that you could point towards that lead to these type of moments. I'm not sure. This is speculation, but I wouldn't be surprised if Bryan maybe had a thing for hurting animals. I wouldn't be surprised if there were signs that you could look back on that may point towards Bryan being capable of doing something like this. And if they were more focused on those signs instead of focused on other dominating topics in the headlines, then like I said, maybe we wouldn't be here today. But then again, who knows? Who knows? You can't always spot everything. And, Bryan's sister's a mental health expert, so-called, but she couldn't tell that her brother was a psychopath. But it's really weird that Bryan was studying criminology and Bryan's sister is a mental health expert. I wonder how much Or how can I put this? I wonder if Bryan was interested in his sister's work as well. I wonder if Bryan studied some of the same things that his sister did. Because I do think that Bryan had an interest in the criminal mind and the way the criminal mind thinks. So I wouldn't put it past Bryan to look into these certain, mental health things as well. But Bryan's mother made a point. She said, is it gun control measures or is it mental health intervention? I think this case provides her answer. Gun control measures would not have stopped what happened with those 4 kids. Gun control measures would not have stopped her son from killing those 4 students. Mental health intervention may have. I believe that in this country and in the world overall, but especially right here in America, we are going through a mental health crisis. There's no denying it. There is no denying it. And instead of tackling the problems like we should, what we're doing is we're trying to normalize it. Instead of, this guy's suffering from this guy's got this problem, this guy's got this problem, or this girl's got this problem, we are encouraging that behavior. In fact, we are attacking and silencing people who are pointing out these problems. A lot of the stuff that I guess our government and our society has convinced you is now normal in 2022, 6 years ago, this stuff was never heard of. And everyone would tell you this stuff was batshit crazy. But now people are too afraid to tell you that. And not only are people too afraid to tell you that, we have the powers that be telling you that this stuff is normal. No, it is not normal. Half of the stuff you see transpiring around you, it's not normal. Half the people you see who seem to be these dominant figures in pop culture and in culture in general, they're not normal. And how they live is not normal. And I'm not here to tell you what normal is, because I think a lot of things could fit under the category of normal. But some of the stuff that we've seen in our society, and you all know what type of stuff I'm talking about, it's not normal. When you got people running around here thinking that they're cats and dogs, and you got people confused about who they are and their identity, and then you try to normalize that in society, you're going to have a society of complete basket cases. And that's the direction we're moving in. And people don't want to have those conversations. They rather virtue signal about taking away firearms and doing this and that and the third, instead of focusing on the real problem. The real problem is we have a shit ton of people in this country who have completely lost their minds. And then we have a shit ton of other people who still seem to kind of be there. They still kind of have their brains, but they're encouraging this stuff. And they're empowering people with mental health issues to dominate our culture. The loudest voices within our culture are now coming from people who are completely insane, instead of people who are grounded. In fact, if you are a grounded individual that likes to stick to facts, you believe science, and you base your opinions on actual tangible facts, you are now considered the enemy. They will call you a bigot, a phobe, all because you have a rational thinking mind. So in my opinion, yes, mental health intervention is the answer. Will it help everyone? No. Will it save everyone? No. But we have to start taking these steps. And we have to start acknowledging this problem, because it's all around us and there's no need to deny it. And the sooner people gain the courage to speak up, and the more people start speaking up, the less we will see things like this. It seems to me like these heinous crimes, don't get me wrong, we've always seen it. There's always going to be crazy situations. But you can't deny that over the past few years that this has gotten worse. There's been a dramatic increase in crime and a dramatic increase in these type of situations. Serial killers are making a comeback. We went a while there where serial killers were no longer a thing. It's kind of like something you would look back at, something that happened in the 60s, 70s, and the 80s, and maybe even the early 90s, and you were like, oh my God, serial killers. But it's like, oh no, serial killers are making a comeback. So I feel like you can't deny that we're seeing this dramatic increase of these crazy situations happening. And it's only been over the last few years that this increase has started. And then you look at the certain narratives that are being pushed on social media, the certain narratives and the ways of thinking that are being pushed by the mainstream media. They're directly tied together. Once we see our society start to question facts that we always knew to be true, once we see these agendas being pushed on us, that's when you saw the increase of these violent, crazy crimes. That's when you saw the increase of people running into stores and looting. It all goes and ties in directly to this mentality and this way of thinking and this narrative that these people are trying to push. They are trying to push our society to the brink of total destruction and chaos so they can further control us. Now, I didn't mean to go off on this rant on this video, but I had to because I can't help but feel like crimes like this are directly tied into the way of thinking that has plagued our country for the last few years. This victim mentality, this confused mentality of who's who and what is what. But anyways, let me know your thoughts about this down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe, ring the notification bell, and always remember to remain opinionated.